What is going on, guys? We have the NHL betting market for January the 18th, where the Fat Guy and I are going to cover the Moneyline, OU, and puck line markets for the NHL. Fat Guy, we're going to start off with the Blue Jackets Red Wings. This was an early start. I think it was around 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. The game literally just finished as we started this video. 2,042 bets. The one thing I will say, it's really nice for us to be able to take a look at markets that have closed. Usually we're taking a look, like you can see the next game, 680 bets. The Jets, Maple Leafs, only 756 bets. But this one has 2,042 bets. So this is more of a true look at what the market would actually look like when we are betting it right before puck drop. And the Blue Jackets opened at minus 162. They were bet up to minus 178 favorites, 59% of bettors, and 61% of the money on the Blue Jackets, which minus 178, 61% is actually fairly close to equilibrium. So they're not taking a lot of exposure on this game despite that line movement.
Well, that's kind of what you want, though. If you're the sports book, you want to mitigate risk and take the guaranteed commission. It looks like they made out like bandits, though, considering the result. So the under did cash, but the under paid out more commission. So they would have made on 51% of the money at minus 119. Obviously, not all 51% of the money is going to be at that price line, but it's going to be between minus 107 and minus 119 unless it dipped for some reason. But either way, it was at negative money. So 51%, of course, is going to be positive, considering that they made it was made at negative money. So they made a guaranteed commission there. Let's look up their profits. That's excellent. Now the Blue Jackets won, but that was 61% of the public bet on the Blue Jackets, meaning that the payout on that is less than what the market could bear. So they made money on that as well. And then let's look at the puck line, Big Rye.
Yeah, the puck line, Detroit plus 1.5, minus 170, plus 1.5, minus 163 is what it closed at. So the line moved actually in favor of the Blue Jackets, but 81% of the money on the Blue Jackets to win by 2 or more. If I'm not mistaken, this game finished 3-2 in favor of Columbus. So Columbus wins by 1, meaning that the Red Wings win the puck line spread of plus 1.5. So only 19% of the money needs to be paid out, Fat Guy, anywhere from minus 170 to minus 163.
Yeah, that's a spicy meatball. So
Yeah,
this is
in a game where they should be paying out, 60% of the money would be equilibrium here. They're only having to pay out 19%. So depending on how much money they took in on this puck line, they've made a pretty penny off of this market.
But that doesn't come with risk, right? So that's what we're trying to study here. Is we're trying to figure out how much expected value is positive when the books take exposure. That's why we do all this stuff. How often are the sharps right? When is it time to buy? Because don't forget, they have a bigger advantage over us because we're still taking prices that they set. But is their exposure, how much is it worth in and above the commission that they take, right? Sometimes it's nothing. Like, don't forget, a lot of these times when you're searching for positive expected value, it doesn't grow on trees. Like inside a casino, for instance, any of those games, it's going to be bad no matter what your strategy. However, once in a while, there are scenarios where it's probably positive. Again, we're being very results-based. We're using this game as a one-game sample that we're extrapolating from. But this, I'm just trying to explain the general strategy is when they take exposure, because they did clearly, like on a lot of these things, maybe not large exposure considering they have commission on both sides, but they did take it and they were profitable. And you'd be surprised at how many of these weird results, like perfect results, 3-2 for the Blue Jackets is the best result that could happen to them. That exact score line. So,
and ironically, it's probably the most common finish in hockey.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's one of those things where over the long term, this is if they had to play this game a million times, this is probably the most common result. The Blue Jackets win 3-2.
Blue Jackets. And it's set up for them to prosper in the most common of results, right? So that this would have been, because this is, this is a stack. They won in all 3 markets, and I think they did. They made off like bandits. So, power to them, but that's why we're studying.
A game that's going to start in about 2 hours, 5 p.m. Eastern time is when it's slated to have puck drop. 680 bets so far. the Bruins are taking on the Islanders. As a road team, the Bruins open at -125. They've been bet up to -134, despite receiving 57% of bets, but more importantly, 28% of the money. So, Fat Guy, they are taking some exposure here on the Islanders, so there might be some value contrarian betting on the Bruins.
It looks like it. This could be one of those things, right? Like it's nice to have an example stacked right on top so we can kind of give everyone an idea of what we actually like. So how our actual strategy. So to this is that 9 points of because this 9 points of reverse line movement for the Bruins. What we're saying is this indicator is losing that 9 points worth making a wager on the Bruins, right? So is the expected value there? How strong is this contrarian play? That's what you have to deduce for yourself. To match it up against the puck line, the Bruins, I mean, what are you thinking here, Big Rye?
Well, the Bruins opened -1.5 at +189. They were bet up. The juice got bet up to +192. So and if you can compare that to the Islanders -219 to -217, they're just adjusting the juice. So nothing has really changed as far as this line goes. And they are taking more exposure on the Bruins because 51% of the money is on the Bruins. So if the Bruins were to win by 2 goals or more, they'd have to pay out 50% of +192, so almost 2-1 on that payout. So it might actually be even money on each side, and the books are obviously hoping for a
Bruins
one-goal
win by 1.
Exactly.
That's what we're getting at.
And
Thank you for that segue.
And the same market as the OU market for the other game, where a 3-2 Bruins finish is going to be a home run for the books.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So they're looking for exactly a 3-2 win for the Bruins, considering all 3 markets. So perhaps if you could bet exact scores of 3-2, there might be positive expected value on such a wager. On to the next one.
We'll quickly, I guess we already talked about the OU, and there's not too much to talk about other than the juice favoring the under. So let's move on to the Jets Maple Leafs, 7 p.m. Eastern time start, 756 bets so far. The Maple Leafs open -150, but they've been bet up to -172, despite receiving 58% of bets, but only 34% of the money. And what's like something that we should do is also talk about the puck line to see where the exposure is there. So Maple Leafs open -1.5 at +148. They're still at -1.5, but they've been bet down to +140. So line moving towards the Maple Leafs or in the Maple Leafs' favor. 57% of bettors, but 74% of the money is on the Maple Leafs. So we have another example here where the books are taking exposure on the Jets to win, and they're taking exposure on the Maple Leafs to win by 2 or more. So a finish of Maple Leafs by 1 would be the best result for the books.
Absolutely, right? So then that would so what does that lead us to believe? Like, we're trying to make deductions here. Yeah, so a Leafs win by 1. If that's the thing that they need to happen for them to make the most money, in theory, can we deduce that the most likely scenario, obvious probability, it's a hockey. The Jets could win 11-0. Of course that could happen. But the most, because think if you were to simulate this game a million times, you're going to bell curve it out. Chances are that the Maple Leafs win by 1 goal. Now, what is that score line? Let's take a look at the OU to give us what that 1-goal win could be.
Well, the OU opened at 6.5, but it's been bet down to 6, even though at 6, there still is heavy juice on the over at -119. So this might not be much of an actual move at all. Hockey is going to be a little bit different, though. As we collect more data, we'll have a better idea of how that exactly matches up. Interesting to note, though, that 86% of bets came in on the over, despite the goals moving from 6.5 to 6. But 58% of the money has been placed on the under.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the one thing that's hard to deduce is when did this under money come in? Do you know what I mean? Because this is vastly different. At -108, 58% is okay to have that. But at +105 to be weighted that way is a little bit difficult. So I guess they're looking for a 3-2 or a 4-3 victory for the Leafs, pending on where that money came in at what time. That's information that unfortunately we're not privy to, and only they are.
Most likely they're thinking this is going to be like a 3-3 overtime shootout game where the
4-3,
where the Leafs win 4-3 in OT. So keep your eye out for that. There's not a ton of value on either side for this. For all these games, really, there hasn't been a ton of value. It's pretty much the books taking equal amount of action on both sides, just in different ways. Next up, we have the Sabres Flyers. It's surprising to note that 1,172 bets have been placed on this game already, which is fairly high for an early NHL market. The Sabres open plus 144, and they've been bet down to plus 129. 34% of bettors and 48% of the money has helped push that line down for the Sabres. Conversely, Fat Guy, let's take a look at the puck line market, where the Sabres at plus 1.5, minus 159 has been bet up to minus 188. 88% of bettors are on the Sabres. However, it says that 98% of the money has been placed on the Flyers, which is very, very interesting to note that on the puck line, they've moved that juice pretty heavily towards the Sabres, even though so much of the money has come in on the Flyers. That doesn't really make sense. Like logically, it doesn't make sense. If so much money's coming in on the Flyers, why do you think they moved the line in favor of the Sabres?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things that could happen. This could be a really strong reverse line movement, and this is a lot of betting volume, so it could be that, and perhaps there is like massive value on the Sabres, or perhaps that money figure is perhaps wrong. It's dubious. I don't like when it comes out to 98.2 or 99.1. It just, something about it just doesn't make sense to me, so I can't give it the weight that I would like to. Do you think that's a fair deduction?
I think so. And the other thing too is that we never know what the true handles are of any of these markets.
Yes.
But maybe 1,100 of these bets are on the money line, and maybe 30 of the bets are on the puck line. And, there might be $400 put on the puck line, and there might be $40,000 put on the money line. So it's one of those ones where, you can read too much into some of these things, especially with, even though there's 1,172 bets, still in the grand scheme of a casino, of a book, 1,172 bets is a very minimal market for them as far as all these games, all these markets go.
And going back to what Big Ry said, how could the discrepancy between money line and puck line be that big? Think about it. You're a Joe. Let's just put us in favor. You're at the bar. Who'd you bet? I bet on the Sabres to lose by 1 or less. What does that mean? Oh, so what's the payout? Oh, I risked $18.80 to win $10. Think of that. Think of that scenario just not happening. You know what I mean? So,
the first thing too is that someone would say about that is, that's the Flyers always win by 2 or more. Like that's the kind of answer you're going to get to from someone. So it's one of those things where who knows what kind of money's coming in on the Flyers puck line. It's so juicy too. Like, they just got to win by 2. I've heard you even say it, like it's just an empty netter. It's just an empty netter at the end of the game. To win at plus 167. All these things are like too good to be true. Like, why would they offer such nice odds on a game to win by 2 or more? Especially when the Sabres are, 45% to win this game outright anyways. Never mind to lose by 2 or more. Another head-shaking one is this over-under. Open 6, still at 6, but the juice has moved heavily in favor of the under from minus 106 to minus 122. 89% of bets have been placed on the over, but 89% of the money has been bet on the under, helping push that juice down. I guess this is kind of like what we'd expect to see.
Yeah, absolutely. But then let's come up with we've been doing this fun little game. What's the best result for the books? What score? And I have one in mind. I'm going to say it's 5-2 for the Flyers. So I think that's perhaps that's the most likely score then. That's my guess.
Well, they don't want the Flyers to win by 2 or more because 98% of the money is on the Flyers.
Yeah, but I'm not buying that though. I'm not buying that.
You're not. So you think So you're reading into value. I disagree. I'm gonna side with the money on this. They want the Flyers to win the game outright. They want the Flyers to win by 1. They want it to be high scoring. Can we get a Flyers win by a 5-4?
4-3.
A 5-4? Let's go really high on this one. Even though the juice is pushed on the under, but there's so much money being placed on the under in this game that it just feels like a game that should even hit 6 or more goals. On to the next one, we've got the Hurricanes Predators, 718 bets in this one, 8 p.m. Eastern time start. Hurricanes opened at -115, bet up to -121, 56% of bets, 99% of money. Interesting to note there that the juices only move that much, considering in this fantasy world that we live in, that 99% of the money has been bet on the Hurricanes. But conversely, let's take a look at the puck line. Hurricanes -1.5, 202, bet down to +193. 65% of bettors are on the Hurricanes to win by 2 or more goals. However, 83% of the money is on the Predators to either win or lose by 1.
I buy that figure on the puck line. That makes more sense to me. I'm not buying that money line figure of 99% of the money on the Hurricanes. Don't forget, we have to draw this from third parties, and so their process, we don't see the inner workings, and I'm sure there are algorithmic lapses or mispublications, I guess you could say, if that's even a word. So I can't give too much weight on that money line number, but the shift does indicate that there is perhaps more money on the Hurricanes, and that would make sense. There's more bets on them, so I can understand that, but there could be more bets, and it could be 54%. There is 718 bets, which is about right for this time of day and this type of game, but I do believe in the puck line figure. That does make sense to me. 65% bet on the Hurricanes, 17% of the money. That does make sense, because technically you're more likely to get pros betting dogs, which makes sense. So that's why I really didn't buy that Sabres Flyers one above there, because I mean they are they're more likely to bet the Sabres, I would imagine, as the 1.5 puck line dogs. Whereas this Predators one, it does make more sense. But it is possible the Hurricanes money is like 75% on the money line. I just can't sign off on the 99 to 1%.
Yeah, this figure is going to change. It's very, very unlikely that this is going to sit at a 99 to 1. And if it
or at least update.
Yeah, like if it did sit at this, this line is going to change drastically, because there's no way they're going to take this much risk on one side.
No way.
So the other thing I will note here is that they are taking risks, though, on the Predators, because this -219 translates to about 68%, and they are taking 83% of the money. So the Predators, they are taking some exposure here on the Predators, +1.5 as of now, but they're obviously also taking risk on the Hurricanes to win the game outright. So if the Hurricanes win by 1, this is actually the worst result for the books. So they won't either want the Predators or the Hurricanes to win by 2 or more in this one. Well, ideally, they want the Hurricanes to win by 2 or more, or the Predators just to win outright.
I wonder if that's a good price for the Predators, though. Look, it came down 219 on 1 + 1.5. I don't know. That seems kind of sharp to me. Interesting. We're just positing theories, though. Don't forget.
The OU for this game opened at 5.5. It's been bet up to 6 with heavy juice on the under. So this might not be much of a line movement at all. 88% of bets have helped push this up. But I scrolled up a bit just to include this market up above, because 88% of bets does not mean 88% of money. Like we see here, it's conversely 89% of bets, 11% of money. So without the money information, it's really hard to make a full determination.
Anything.
Yeah. So we're going to skip over that and move on to the Sharks Blues game, 8 p.m. Eastern time start. Sharks opened at +165, bet down to +159, despite receiving 9% of bets and 2% of the money, which is kind of fishy. And if we look at the puck line as well, the Blues open -1.5, +125, bet up to +138, 41% of bettors, but 73% of the money is on the Blues. So there's heavy money on the Blues, not only on the money line, but on the puck line as well. So they are taking some exposure on a Blues victory here. And interesting to note, a reverse line movement for both the money line and the puck line for the Sharks, despite more money coming in on the Blues.
I mean, this is one of those things. Like, was there an injury? What could have happened? This is very interesting. There heavy exposure on the Sharks, the heaviest we've seen so far. The market, of course, only has 680 bets rather flat, but I mean, it's still something. I put more stock on that 98 to 2% money. I actually believe that. Because let's be honest, there's 91% of the bets on the Blues. 98% of the money isn't out of that realm. It's not that conversely related. I mean, if there's somebody the one thing is perhaps they've increased their early limit on somebody, and perhaps one or two accounts are really shaping this market with heavy favoritism to the Blues and what looks to be the Blues and the under. So we're going to hit the over-under on the next
Well, it opened at the one thing I want to add to this is that Devin Dubnyk is going to be starting in goal for San Jose Sharks. The usual starter is Martin Jones, so interesting to note that Devin Dubnyk is going to be getting the start. So that might be why this line, it just might have opened up way higher than normal, and it's just adjusting back because of the goalie news. Jordan Bennington, the regular starter for the Blues, is going to be in. So that might be why that line got set so high and why there is so much money being placed on Jordan Bennington, the starting goalie for St. Louis, compared to the backup in Devin Dubnyk, although a very respectable backup in Devin Dubnyk over his career. The OU for this game opened at 6. The under was -112, and it's been pushed down to -123 on the under. 45% of bettors and 92% of the money has been placed on the under. Fat guy.
Yeah, another one of those things. This is probably the weirdest market we've seen so far in terms of exposure. Under, really not a good score. So Sharks and the over, definitely the result the books would really like. They are really incentivizing the over, though. Let's be honest. Like it's not the greatest shift in the world, but still, I'm getting plus 109 on that over number. Maybe they want us to mitigate some of their risk, because, like I always say, if the book wants to, if the book wants me to do them I can't even say my own idiom. If the book wants me to do them a favor, they better incentivize it, and they kind of are with that 109. But that makes me think, though, that the handle isn't as drastic or isn't as large as it is on some of the other games, perhaps on this OU market, because they only moved it they didn't move it they didn't move it to 5.5. They moved the juice 11 points here, which is still very nice. It's very nice. But I mean, what if I got half a point and at -105 or even at plus money? So I mean, it is they are taking exposure, and over is probably the play if you're going to make it only. But that's because of them balancing. We do have to try and figure out how sharp is the early action on this Blues, and we probably be able to figure that out over time.
Next up, we have the Vancouver Canucks taking on the Calgary Flames. 567 bets so far in this game. The Flames open -130. They've been bet up to -146. 51% of bettors, and a little more exposure here on the Flames with 77% of the early money. But the line has moved in favor of the Flames. It might push even higher to help balance that out, fat guy.
Yeah, it would. It depends on what the handle is on that puck line. And if you could go over the puck line numbers real quick so we can make a converse.
Well, the puck line is also favored the Flames. It opened -1.5, plus 172, bet down to plus 163. 80% of bettors and 59% of the money has come in on the Flames. So with that puck line, you expect the Canucks to be like at 65% of the money. So
yes.
Right now only at 41%. So the books are actually taking some exposure here on the Flames, both on the money line and the puck line.
Yeah, they're taking some heat. So, I mean, like I said, we're circling back to that last point, which is quite nice how this segue happens. If the book wants me to do them a favor, they have to incentivize it. And they kind of are. There is reason to, if you didn't like that price at plus 118, it's starting to look good at plus 31. You know what I mean? If you're a Canucks better. If you like the Flames, you probably missed the boat, considering the pricing changes in both the puck line and the money line. But I think it's obvious here that the book is taking exposure, and they would like to balance with some Canucks money. So let's see. It would be interesting to note is, where does this Canucks money plateau? Where is the buyback? So we'll probably be able to see that tomorrow. This is an early market at 567 bets, which is the smallest, I believe, of the day so far. But it is of note and it is interesting.
Next up, we have the Minnesota Wild taking on the Anaheim Ducks. The Wild opened at -126. They were bet up to -134. 71% of bettors and 95% of the money has helped that. Conversely, on the puck line, Wild opened -1.5, +186. They were bet up to +190. 20% of bettors, 95% of the money. So heavy money on the Wild, both on the money line and on the puck line. Interesting to note, though, that the puck line didn't move too much, but the money line did adjust from -126 to -134.
Well, the puck line's actually reverse line movement. You're getting you're getting a better price despite having all the money on it. Of course, plus 190 from 186. It's a very small one, but it's reverse line movement nonetheless. Very interesting. 95% to 5% of the money. Very, very heavy action on the Wild, and not to mention, assuming these 95% to 5 money figures are correct, there is a lot of action on the Wild here, and it looks like they're taking exposure early on the Ducks. Any way you slice it, because don't forget, like, it's even worse taking 95% of the money on the Wild at plus 190, considering it's a dog. Like, you're gonna have to pay out through the nose if that does happen. The Wild winning by 2, of course. As well as the Wild winning is really bad in the money line market, because I mean, you're paying out at negative money -134, but it's still overwhelmingly not balanced. So they're taking exposure on the Minnesota Wild. So they do need the Ducks to pull through, assuming that this market doesn't ship and change, which it probably will, considering just 605 bets, and we're 5.5 hours from puck drop. So we should see some dramatic shifts. I just wonder, where's the buyback going to be on the Anaheim Ducks?
And the OU for this game open at 5.5, still at 5.5. The juice has moved slightly in favor of the over from -103 to -106. 76% of early bettors have placed bets on the over.
I would imagine that there's more dollars per person on the under, and it's 56.44, considering we don't have that money percentage figure. But that's just a speculation, considering the small line movement, which makes me feel that the money favors the over. But the under would have more dollars per person, considering this 24%. But the shift isn't as big, isn't as congruent it would be if the money was 3-1.
And then on to the 9 p.m. Eastern time start for the Canadiens Edmonton Oilers game. 832 bets so far. Canadiens opened at -111. They've been bet down to -107. 44% of bettors, 45% of the money has been placed on the Canadiens. So not too much of a discrepancy on the money line. Let's jump over to the puck line, where the Oilers open +1.5 at -229. They are still at +1.5, but it's been bet up to -245. 26% of bettors and 49% of the money has been placed on the Oilers. So despite the books taking a lot more risk here on the Canadiens at +215, 51% of the money, the line has moved, a reverse line movement in favor of the Oilers, both on the bet percentage and the money percentage.
Just this discrepancy makes me like the Oilers money line, to be honest, because they're de-incentivizing you from taking them at +1.5. So I guess they're thinking Canadians win by 1. But then if it's that close, wouldn't I prefer the money line? Anyways, these are all just theories and speculations as we learn this market. But I mean, that what also ties in with that idea is the OU is high. It's 6.5, right? It's a bit higher than the past 2 games. So if there's a high variance in score, it kind of favors the Dogs' chances almost. So I think it's interesting of note that the Oilers are favored to keep this close, and the books are willingly taking risk on the Oilers losing by 1, like as a high probability. So if that's the case, then there's probably likely that the Oilers could even win the game at a better rate than at -103.
And then on to the Coyotes Golden Knights game. 680 bets so far. Golden Knights open -183, bet up to -192. 52% of bettors, 57% of bettors, and 93% of the money has been placed on the Golden Knights money line. And then we'll take a look at the puck line. The juice hasn't moved too much. Golden Knights open at -1.5, still at -1.5. 17% of bettors and 85% of the money is on the Golden Knights puck line.
So, the books really need a performance here so far on the Yotes. I read that. They called them the Yotes. This hockey lingo isn't flying with me despite being Canadian myself. The Coyotes are definitely going to need a performance for the books, considering they have exposure, which is considerable on not only a Knights victory, but a Knights victory by 2. It's 680 bets, so it isn't an infantile market, and the game doesn't drop for 6.5 hours. This could change. I feel like the Knights are more of a public team, so they open this willingly to take, knowing this action would come. So that makes me interested in, maybe the Coyotes are perhaps undervalued. I don't know. We're going to have to see how this market matures.
And then the OU opened at 6. It's been bet down to 5.5. 65% of bettors, 98% of the money is on the over.
Yeah, that seems about right. 98%. I don't know if I can put fully stock in that figure, but I do believe that there are more dollars, perhaps on the over. But what's interesting here is it dipped from 6 to 5.5, but the juice barely moved. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that money figure is completely off, because I don't know what to make of that then, Big Rye.
This one makes the least sense out of almost any market we've seen so far, considering that NHL games have been hitting overs at a pretty high rate. So for this game, especially like Golden Knights are usually considered like a high-flying, high-scoring team. So for them to open at 6 with heavy juice on the under, and then for it to push down to 5.5, I find very interesting. So it seems like a lot of people find it interesting as well and are putting money on the over at 5.5, especially at -103. That's
I can understand
it seems
that.
Too good to be true.
But doesn't that keep in line with how this game is situated? Because realistically, the under in the Coyotes, like a 3-2 victory for the Knights is good. Is good for the book. Whereas in theory, of course, we don't know the handle number on Moneyline in relation to the puck line, but I would imagine those two markets combined, winning them will still probably net you a profit. Also, too, the money line on the Knights is very high at -192, so the payout would be quite low. Whereas conversely, they're a dog to win by 2. So the Knights winning at 3-2 would definitely, would most likely net them a profit. Whereas the Coyotes winning 3-2 would probably net them the most money, which is making, it looks very interesting. Let's put it that way.
I was just checking to see if at Pinnacle you could bet
exact 3-2.
Yeah. Well, you could parlay some of this stuff together, but you can't. They don't let you.
Of course.
That's it for the NHL betting market for January the 18th, 2021. Good luck on your January 18th wager.